Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to already being recorded. Okay, so everyone knows this meeting is being recorded. Good afternoon and welcome to CDTC's virtual New Visions Learning Series. Today we have guests from CDTA in the city of Troy to talk about transit stop site design and universal access and how CDTC is developing the multimodal transportation system that it lays out in the goals and strategies in the New Visions 2050 plan. So just a quick review of our webinar guidelines. If you are an attendee, your mic is muted. You can't see us, but you can see us, we can't see you. If you have comments or questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to use the chat to send messages to the hosts and panelists. If you have a question, you can also use the Q&A function that should be on your Zoom toolbar. You can also use the raise hand function and I will unmute you if you prefer to talk. But otherwise, feel free to use the chat or the Q&A function throughout the webinar if you have comments or questions. Today's webinar is pending CM approval. Our upstate chapter is currently working out some conflicts with APA, but it should be approved. So if you are AICP and you'd like to get credits for today's webinar, I will be sending you an attendance certificate. So you can count today towards that. And if you are from a local government, a city, a town, or a village, and your municipality has approved CDTC's webinars for credit through the Department of State training requirements, then today's webinar will also count. And if you need more information about that, I encourage you to visit the New York State Department of State training website, or to call them by phone or send them an email. We will continue to have webinars each month as part of our implementation of our New Visions 2050 plan. For 2022, we have some really interesting webinars planned for each month. Our goal is to create something that's engaging and to provide some tools and resources to local planners and organizations that may be working on some of these local planning issues to help you. So next month, the webinar will be on air quality and transportation planning and modeling. We'll talk about CDTC's transportation model and the process that we go through for the TIP, for our long range plan and other major transportation products, and what else we can do with the model. March, we will be talking about resiliency and security, the climate crisis, and how we're planning for a more resilient transportation system. And April 19th, we will have a webinar with our partners over at the Capital District Regional Planning Commission on what your regional planning agency can do for you to really lay out all of the services, all of the resources that CDTC and CDRPC can provide to local planners. And for more information about the New Visions webinars, you can visit our webpage. And just as a reminder, all of our previous New Visions webinars have been recorded and uploaded to our CDTC YouTube channel. Today's webinar will also be recorded and uploaded to the channel as well. So today's agenda, I'm going to give a brief introduction and overview, and we should get through this fairly quickly. We don't want to keep you too long today, but then I will pass it to Brent Irving from CDTA, and Brent will pass it to Steve Strichman from the city of Troy, and then we'll conclude with Jonathan Scherzer at CDTA. But I just want to give everyone a chance right now to introduce themselves. So today also as a panelist, we have Chris Bauer from CDTC. Chris, do you want to briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Chris Bauer, and I'm a transportation planner here at CDTC. And one of my tasks that I've recently taken on is the transit program. So I'm here learning just like the rest of the people in the audience.
Thanks, Chris. And I'm Jen Ceponis, a senior transportation planner at CDTC. Brent, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm also muted. My name is Brent Irving. I'm a senior transportation planner at the Capital District Transportation Authority.
And Steve?
Hi, Steve Strichman, Commissioner of Planning for the City of Troy for going on 6 years. And before that, I was the Director of Economic Development for the City of Schenectady for 16 years.
Thanks, Steve. And Jonathan?
Afternoon, Jen and everyone else watching. My name is Jonathan Scherzer. I'm Director of Business Development here at CDTA. I handle a variety of programs from Universal Access, which we'll talk about later today, to some of our newer mobility products and our customer outreach.
Thanks. All right. So I don't think anyone here today needs a reminder, but the Capital District Transportation Committee is Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, and the map on your screen shows the MPO area. So it includes the 4 counties, just minus a small corner, the northeast corner of Saratoga County. And we also include local, regional, and state transportation and planning organizations like the DOT, CDRPC, the airport, CDTA, the Thruway, and the Port Authority, the Albany Port. The key functions of the MPO, we have three major products, and the Long Range Transportation Plan, or New Visions 2050, is one of them. New Visions 2050 establishes investment policies and principles and strategies that really guide our other key products and the investments that are prioritized here at CDTC. So the policies and principles influence how the TIP is programmed, which is the 5-year capital program. And then, of course, our Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, which is all of the tasks and activities that CDTC supports. So what is New Visions 2050? It's the blueprint for regional transportation that reflects a shared vision for the future. It's a 30-year plan, so it's a very long-range plan for our transportation system, and it was developed collaboratively with the public, with our members and stakeholders throughout the Capital District. What's in the plan? There is an executive summary. If you haven't if you're not familiar with New Visions 2050, I encourage you to at least read the executive summary, but there are also 11 technical area, we refer to them as white papers, or chapters that cover different modes and programs here at CDTC. And there's also a financial plan and a glossary and some additional reference documents. But the centerpiece of the New Visions plan are our 15 planning and investment principles. They were developed and proposed over time by our New Visions task forces, and they really influence the types and tasks and initiatives that CDTC initiates and supports, like the local road safety plan, the Capital District Trails plan, and different planning initiatives we've launched here at CDTC. Of course, investing in transit is and providing essential mobility for all, 2 things that we'll talk about today, are major goals and principles in the New Visions 2050 plan. And the best practices proposed in New Visions plan, these are kind of like the major strategies that are proposed to help us achieve our New Visions 2050 goals: maintaining a state of good repair of the system, managing congestion, not increasing capacity, implementing complete streets, transit-oriented development and smart growth, access management, implementing safe systems or Vision Zero policies, compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, and expanding public participation. And some of our major accomplishments through previous long-range plans can be seen all over the Capital District. It's major infrastructure and capital projects, especially the bus rapid transit system that we've seen grow over the last decade. So to develop the multimodal transportation system that we are striving for here, we need to balance land use and our transportation needs. And in order to continue to deliver and create quality transit service, we continue to promote smart land use planning, and we work with communities across the region on land use planning. And we also often include and involve CDTA in our regional planning initiatives because they are such an important part of our transportation system, and land use decisions made locally affect how they can deliver accessible and efficient transit and other mobility services. So the capital region, as we showed through our planning and investment principles, prioritizes transit investments. And you can see that by our expanded transit system, especially with the bus rapid transit lines. In the Transportation and Improvement Program, the TIP, there is a set aside just for the BRT, and CDTA has really leveraged that funding. And for every $1 million invested, they have been able to leverage $4.75 million in other state and federal funds. And that's really important and beneficial for our local communities because while CDTA, yes, they're buying buses, they're putting in bus shelters and other, transit specific infrastructure, they're also helping to improve and maintain other transportation assets like pavement and sidewalks, like ITS, traffic signals, and bus shelters, which are important to local communities. So all of CDTA's investments have been really wisely spent and turned into improvements for corridors, for intersections, and for cities and communities throughout the region. And we know that CDTA provides fixed route transit service, and we are familiar with the BRT system and the planned BRT routes, but CDTA also provides other mobility options in the region, like Flex, the micro transit program, CDPHP Cycle, which is a bike share program. They manage our van pool. They are preparing to launch a car sharing program and scooters for communities that want them. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Brent. And Brent, you can either share your screen or I can share your presentation, whichever you prefer.
You can share my presentation. That's fine.
Okay.
And I'll just say next slide when I'm ready to move on.
Okay. If you can see it, let me know, and just let me know when to move forward.
Perfect. Yes, I can see it. It looks like all the font was embedded, so it looks like it's in good shape. So again, hello everyone. My name is Brent Irving. I'm a senior transportation planner at the Capital District Transportation Authority, and I'll be talking today about the way CDTA has recently worked with capital region agencies on some of our capital planning projects and how CDTA projects can coordinate with municipal project programming. I'll move through some of these slides quite quickly just because I want to make sure that there's time for everybody, and then we can answer all the questions at the end. Next slide, Jen. So our projects can really come from a few different realms. In general, when we hear of projects that are going to take place along local roadways where CDTA currently runs service, we look within the scope and limits of the project to see what improvements for transit access can be made. This can be adding a shelter to a stop on a local route that currently doesn't have one, a needed pedestrian improvement like additional sidewalks and crosswalks. and supporting infrastructure, or depending on where the project is located and the scale of the project, it may prompt us to look at our existing and future BRT plans and service and how that project would affect those efforts. Transit improvement projects can also come from bicycle and pedestrian planning efforts, especially bicycle facilities, because the roadway spaces where both transit and bicycle facilities operate are the same spaces within the right-of-way. So it's important to coordinate early with those projects so conflicts of interest do not become larger issues during the design phases. And really the third realm where our projects can come from is in the case of economic development, because these are large redevelopment projects that often rebuild the sidewalks and adjacent to the property, as well as the roadway required to update utilities or bring new utilities to the site. It's a great opportunity for CDTA to make transit improvements since the roadway work will happen as part of the project regardless. In all those cases, but especially with case number 1 and 3, it's important to engage CDTA as early in the process as possible, simply because of the cost of redesign, which could occur if the developer or engineer has advanced the plan, architecture, and the building footprint to a degree that would need to be modified to make space for any transit facility. So the last thing we want to do is say that a building needs to move 5 feet one way or the other when you're at 60% design. So having those conversations early can really help reduce the risk from that happening. Next slide. And one of the keys to moving our projects along is continually having designs and traffic analysis and process so we can answer early on if what we are proposing is going to have an impact on modifying the traffic pattern or lane patterns from making a project adjustment requested by CDTA. We know that concessions often have to be made for accommodating better transit facilities. In doing so, in doing so, we often look beyond the immediate site where the project is going to be located, outside the scope of the transit improvement, to make improvements that have a greater municipal benefit than one that is necessary for CDTA. And with that cooperation, we often improve infrastructure like repaving roadways, replacing sidewalks and curb ramps, ped timers and signals, in addition to replacing outdated signals or updating them to accept the necessary hardware for TSP. A big contribution that we can leverage for municipalities is match funding through the BRT set-aside program or CIJ funding as a contribution, which does not require a match from local agencies, which overall reduces the financial burden placed on cities to make in order to advance or even in some cases apply for projects. But again, there has to be a nexus where that project directly to BRT service and infrastructure upgrades to make that match claim. Next slide. So as mentioned before, we keep an eye on roadway projects across the region. Many of the projects come directly from CDTC's Transportation Improvement Program. So this time of year in particular, because projects are being submitted to the TIP, and we know who's going, and we want to keep an eye on it to know who we can coordinate with when those projects are awarded, where CDTA has existing service. But really any roadway project, whether it be coming from TIP or another funding source, this is going to be the bulk of where our project coordination is born out of. Next slide. And there are really a lot of examples from category 1. I think this one particular example of how partnering with CDTA benefits both parties. The city of Cohoes has been continually improving Remsen Street as part of their phase 1 improvement. CDTA coordinated closely with the city of Cohoes to improve our Remsen Street bus stop into the downtown Cohoes BusPlus Blueline station. So this was in 2017 when the planning occurred. It was built in 2018 and the Blueline launched in 2020. So a lot of planning around the future coordination of how CDTA would serve the community of Cohoes was really what was talked about. CDTA provided funding through a TAP grant and worked with the city to build all the horizontal structures at the station as BRT ready, meaning prior to the launch of the Blueline, we could easily install the vertical structures to support the operations, like the pylon and the shelter. And this includes the conduit and utility necessary to light and power the pylons and shelter. The custom shelter was brought a little bit closer to the street. The sidewalks were widened, and we added a bus layover area. And we also added 3 new traffic signals and TSP controllers on the approach to the site, and worked with the city to produce a parking plan that would not interfere with buses making turns on the narrower streets of Cohoes. And so that was completed in phase 1. Cohoes has since moved on to phase 2 and kept us in the loop with their project, and they are now on to phase 3 of the Remsen Street improvement. Next slide. So the second category of coordination mentioned was with bicycle and pedestrian master planning. This category, as mentioned before, is important to note since bicycles operate in the same spaces as transit primarily operates. And CDTA has a vested interest in improving pedestrian facilities across the region, as they are directly affect our customers' ability to access transit facilities. Again, many of these projects come out of the same project development program as TIP, TAP, CMAC, and local roadway improvement fundings. We often get involved as stakeholders for the master planning efforts, but really get more involved as design begins and progresses to ensure that the 2 modes are not in conflict with each other. A great project that was just completed prior to the launch of our BusPlus Blueline was the coordination between the city of Albany and CDTA for their South End connector project. I'll come back to the 2 photos on the right in just a moment. I want to move on to the next slide and focus more on Mount Hope Station. So if you're familiar with the project, this was a multi-use trail project sponsored by the city of Albany in the South End on Pearl Street. As part of the Blueline, we had 2 stations planned along this section of Pearl, the rail trail station and the Mount Hope station. Finding a way for the future Blueline infrastructure and the connector to interact was the key part to this project. The agreed design was to construct an island bus stop, as you can see on the pictures in the right, where the multi-use path went behind the bus shelter and primary boarding area. You can see within the picture that this maintains the off-street alignment of the multi-use trail, creates a physical separation with motor vehicles and cyclists, and allows CDTA to stay and serve the site by staying in lane. And Jen, you can go back 1 slide and we can look at those photos one more time. And just to expand upon that coordination with the city, at the trailhead end of the connector, we adjusted our design for our rail trail station by moving it back into the property to accommodate for the park and ride lot and layover area. And this also maintains the off-street alignment for the connector, which connects directly with the trailhead. So all in all, a very good project, and the first bus station of its kind in the region to have the floating bus stop design to it. You can skip over to slide. Yep, so 1 more. And the last area that I'll talk about is with respect to economic development and long-range BRT planning. These projects are really good opportunities, as mentioned before, to get into the ground floor with large-scale projects, whether they be commercial or residential, and design according to some of the things that CDTA would want to serve the site better. Because large development projects often rebuild the sidewalks adjacent to the property, as well as the road work required, as well as to update or add new utilities. It's a good opportunity to work with CDTA to make transit improvements since the roadway work is going to happen. And again, engaging earlier, the better, because when the building footprint has been established, at that point, it's too late to redefine the program in space. Next slide. One particular site, aside from those shown on the last slide, that really was a good partnership was work coordinated with the city of Troy for our 4th and Congress Street station on the Blueline, and with Rosenblum companies. If you're familiar with the intersection, you'll know that it was the former site of a key bank, which sat vacant for some time I think it may have been vacant for a year or so. It really was an underdeveloped site for being in Troy's urban core. We were able to work with Rosenblum in the city through their design phase and establish a BRT station with all the amenities that you would expect, including a new shelter and pylon, heated sidewalks, as well as green roof and solar panels. We also reduced and narrowed the street with 2 curb extensions, which took the former 3-lane road and reduced it to 1 shared through right turn lane and 1 bus only lane. We also replaced the signal and installed TSP so that the bus can merge into traffic ahead of any traffic awaiting their green to proceed north on 4th. And this is just a really good example of how CDTA performed the necessary traffic analysis for the city and for Rosenblum to ensure reducing the number of lanes would not create an undue hardship on other roadway users or cause any unnecessary drop in signal level of service. So all in all, also a very good project that has produced a great product in the end. And that concludes my presentation.
Thanks, Brent. Steve, if you want to share your screen.
Okay, sharing. Oh, not this again. Is it sharing?
It is, but I
Okay.
can see your notes on the left side, so you just need to do the slideshow.
From beginning.
Yes.
We're good? Okay. No, you can still see my notes?
I can still see your notes. I don't know why it's not going to the full screen.
I thought we took care of this before. Okay. Well, the slideshow from beginning. And let me just stop sharing and start again and see if I can do that again. Start. Oh. Is that any better?
No, it's the same.
Okay, well, then I'll just shrink those down and you've got what you got, so I don't waste
Okay.
everybody's time.
It's fine.
Okay, and I'm going to start at the end because I was trying to figure out where my relationship with CDTA started. And we are now adopting our new zoning ordinance in Troy. So I've created a comprehensive plan in Schenectady and Troy and the zoning to follow. And in Troy, when we actually set up our committee for this, we actually asked CDTA to have someone be on our steering committee for the new zoning. We had Mike Williams on there, and it was really great to have somebody looking at it from a transit point of view. And I think, is that moving forward or not? Did it move to the BRT slide?
Yes.
Okay, good. Then I'll look over. I'm gonna drag, well, whatever. Okay. So I think, you know, with CDTA, I think the reconfiguring the old routes that used to be here from the 50s and starting to reorganize them around where people actually worked and not just GE, and then the implementation of the bus rapid transit really is what got me starting to be really involved with CDTA and appreciate everything they brought to us. I was fortunate enough to be in Schenectady when the Red Line was created, and then again in Troy as the Blue Line was created. And I'm also a frequent rider of those, and I think that's very important if you're out there and you're not riding the bus on occasion. They're really convenient. Schenectady to Albany is super easy, and you don't have to park and walk a mile away. And it really helps you as you plan, think about, look more at transit and how it impacts, your development. The other thing, let's see. Okay. So as we were developing in Schenectady, I think it was interesting that sometimes CDTA needs something from the city and sometimes you need something from CDTA. And this is really annoying since my slide's not moving. It's still moving, right? So this is a mid-block crossing that is just east. It's on the Red Line, and it's just east in Schenectady of Route 146. And CDTA needed help finding a parking lot. St. Luke's had a parking lot there that wasn't used during the day, so we worked with CDTA and St. Luke's to use that parking lot to access the bus rapid transit, and because of that, they needed to have a mid-block crossing, which certainly met with some issues in the city of Schenectady. And it was nice to be able to be there and advocate on behalf of them and make sure that this happened. And you can see from the next slide, it's also, obviously the road needs to be paved. This has been 10 or 11 years now, but you can see the nature of the mid-block crossing here and the fact that it is so far away from either of the streets to the right and to the left. And through this whole process of developing the bus rapid transit, what really hit me was CDTA asking us, can you start including us on all of your planning commission agendas mailings? And we hadn't done that before. So we would send them notices of everything on the agenda. They would look through them and see which ones they might be able to provide some input on. And that was of use when I was in Schenectady, and it continues to be of great use in site plan development in Troy. Where we needed help from CDTA in Schenectady was down in Proctor's. And so this was one of the major stops. And so there were people lined up on the street all the time. It made it actually inconvenient to access the arcade to get tickets at Proctor's. And one of the things that the city wanted was to possibly relocate the station. And with the CDTA involvement with the train station just a little bit to the west, it was advantageous to move the site down more under the bridge. And it was so this is a westbound bus. And while the city had done a lot of the investment there already, and then CDTA came in with the stops, it was just great to have a stop right there that could access the train station when it did eventually open. And also it could keep riders out of the rain during inclement weather without the need for a stop. Okay. In Troy, we when the Blueline, so I started here in 2016 and the Blueline was already under development. So it was great to work with the city, work with CDTA on locating these stops. Here we had a SAM grant to improve Powers Park. It's a historic park. You can see the sidewalks are really in disrepair, and that's actually one of the better ones. One side did not have a park. So we worked with CDTA for what we had a $450,000 grant, SAM grant, to work on the park. And we teamed up with CDTA to put a stop in, you see down there where the bike share is at the end, to put in a BRT stop there. And we worked a lot with CDTA to locate the stops. The next street further down is 112th Street, which accesses Cohoes, where the BRT goes. And they didn't want to put the stop down there because the bus would have had to then in the right lane to pick up passengers and then cross traffic to head west. So we located the station here, and we had an MOU with CDTA where we bid out the sidewalk work, and they reimbursed us for the cost relating to the station. You can see here the brand new station. They worked with us on the fencing as well. And they installed ADA accessible ramps all around in that area and did some additional sidewalks outside of this picture. Okay, next. This is the Headley stop that Brent mentioned. And again, you can see the road needs work here. This is there's 1,000 people just off the picture to the right working in the Headley building. And we have a crosswalk, a mid-block crossing right here with some faster traffic. So we worked with CDTA to slow the traffic a little bit, and Google did not really participate with me in the before and afters here because we did pave this afterwards, but you can see the new curbing they put in, heated sidewalks, new sidewalks, and then we paved this in October. And we actually were able to get paint. I know people are having problems painting, and this has all been redone. And it was really a great coordination effort with CDTA where the stars aligned and they were doing their project, and we held up ours just long enough and were able to get everything paved in time for the season. I just want to mention quickly bike share. We work obviously with the team. It's great to cite the bike locations and then to move them on occasion when neighbors complain and don't like them. And we were able to use the bike locations to really, for, I would almost call it a complete street effect, to prevent cars and unloading in this area just before the crosswalk. And we were able to do this by putting the stations in the road in 2 locations here on Broadway, in front of another Rose and Bloom project, the News, and right by Monument Square. And this is in front of Peck's Arcade and Plum Oyster Bar. And finally, we have been working with CDTA on developing future bus rapid transit stops that align with Troy's plans. And here you can see Route 2, the Congress Street Bridge. We have for a long time wanted to continue River Street straight across here. This is a 1970s Robert Moses style high-speed on-ramp, and we would like to make a T intersection here. Again, if you're driving west on Congress Street, you pretty much have to leave the city of Troy. So because these 3 sites are owned by the Housing Authority, and there is going to be redevelopment of the Taylor apartments, starting with the site here, we worked with CDTA and with their consultant Creighton Manning to look at how to transform this reconfigure this so that when the stimulus money that we knew was came, we would be able to implement this or get funding for it. And we, unfortunately, like a lot of you, were lined up. We were able to get a member item that ended up fading away to start. It was $5.7 million to start the reconstruction of this intersection. We are, however, working east on Congress Ferry on a TIP project. And so we will continue to look at how we can implement this in time for phase 2 and phase 3 in Taylor. We are also working with CDTA on not a bus rapid transit, but a mobility center. This is just south of downtown. Hill Street comes in, there's an unsafe intersection here, and we're looking at taking this whole area, making it into a mobility station, moving the bus stop from here over to this location as well. So that's something that's in the planning stages, but we would not be able to do that without CDTA and their ability to look long-term for planning functions. And finally, my favorite CDTA project, e-scooters, because we were able to, as everybody was calling us and asking us to work with them so that their company could locate in the city of Troy, and with all the nightmares we heard about Houston and all the issues relating scooters and being left all over the place, it was so great to just be able to say, CDTA is our transit agency, and contact them and deal with them. So that's why that was my favorite, and they've done a great job with it. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Jonathan, do you want to share your screen, or do you want me to share your presentation?
I will be happy to share. Just trying to make it easy for you. Okay, share screen. I lied. Everyone seeing?
Yep.
Okay, well, I want to take a minute and thank Steve and Brent for their presentations, because they really go well together. Mine is kind of like a connector between the two. But I think one of the biggest things that was just said was what Steve said. Steve and I go back. One of my first meetings at CDTA was meeting him with our director of planning up at the Union College campus. We were trying to get some things worked out, and to have Steve there and then go to Troy has been super beneficial for us, being able to tape the kind of program like a scooter program. It is these partnerships. It is the ability of CDTA, CDTC, and all the municipalities, Troy, the city of Troy in particular, to be able to pull these programs together and make them work. So I want to thank all of our municipal partners and CDTC because it's really, we're not in a position to do the things that we do if we don't have great partnerships. So as I said when I got on here, I'm Jonathan Scherzer. I'm the Director of Business Development over here at CDTA. What we're going to talk about today is our universal access program, which is basically bulk purchasing of access to our route network. Originally, it was just for fixed route buses. We included some paratransit, we included some commuter services, but now with CDPHP Cycle, Scoot, Flex on Demand, and some other programs we have, there's really a 360-degree opportunity here. If your business, university, college, organization is interested in providing transit benefit to its employees or students. At the highest level, universal access is that group program that allows somebody like a Stewart Shops or an Albany Medical Center to work with us to either use their identification cards for access to our vehicles and our services, or for CDTA to provide its Navigator point of entry, which is either a smart card with a chip, or we now have the ability to work with universal access customers and have them utilize their mobile ticketing via our Navigator mobile app. So there's continuing growth of technology allows us a larger partnership base. You can see here on the slide, we have a variety of colleges and universities. As our CEO, Carmen Basil, would say, we have locked up every single higher education university there is in the capital region, and we are now expanding to high schools and some of the trade schools as well. There's also major employers there, so government partners that we work with, and then the technology is really what makes the access easy for all the customers and partners that we have. So just a quick, simple overview on how does it work. You get unlimited access to the route network. There's a variety of reasons that we build these programs. An entity may not have service at their location now. They may be expanding their number of locations. They may just have significant growth in their customer and employee base. They want to be able to take the benefits of our network and be able to utilize it to continue that growth. So there are different size, let's say, and scope of capability of universal access, which we can deploy. And I've got a variety of them if anyone's interested after the presentation. The employees or students then access their services either by using their own identification card. So we have, as an example, the University of Albany still utilizes their ID cards, and they're able to tap on the bus, load up and go. We also have the smart card and the mobile app, as I discussed. Really, the best incentive is for your customer, your employee, or your student to be able to access this network free of charge. One of the biggest success stories we have is with Albany Medical Center. As they were going through their kind of building redo, there were some challenges and needs, and we were able to reconfigure service around the main campus of the hospital, but we were able to roll in their ID card. And that's for everyone from a nurse to a doctor, to somebody who works in the commissary, somebody who works as a chef in the kitchen. A variety of different employees are able to do that. And we would hear over and over again that benefit savings, which is equates to about $750 to $1,000 a year, is huge and significant for a lot of the employees in some of the organizations. So we don't want to overlook that. And generally speaking, what we do is we build this program together in partnership with the other organization, university, try to come up with a price point that's satisfactory both for CDTA services that are required to provide and be out on the street, but also make sure that the university, college, or business partner has some kind of budget predictability and cost certainty. So this is really, it's like the anatomy of a deal every time we start with a new partner. Our most current one are some hospitals that we're working with, and maybe an expansion territory for us and a couple of other areas. So each one is not the same, but they all kind of live and breathe in the same book or chapter. And taking it down to the real world, on top of the $750 to $1,000 savings I told you about, there's also your employees, your students no longer needing their car quite as often. So now they're also saving money on the fuel. Maybe they don't need to get the oil change quite as quick. Maybe their car holds up a little bit longer should they need it. And then also the elimination of the stressful commute. We've all been there. Imagine instead you're sitting on a comfortable warm bus here in the middle of January. If you're on BusPlus, you're able to utilize free Wi-Fi. And even further, you're able to go to the albanytimesunion.com for free. So it's another partnership we've built up for BusPlus. And then also people, one of the larger sell points is for somebody like Latham Pool Products or Stewart Shops, some of our newer partners. You're not only getting them to and from work. Stewart's has a host of facilities around the capital region. Latham Pool Products has a very significant plant in Scotia, but it's their ability to get to daycare, to get to the supermarket, to get to enjoy a concert, to get to go out to dinner if the time is right. the access to our network is unfettered. So just because you're using this benefit to get to and from work, it is also applicable in other areas of your life. And that really winds up being one of the larger benefits that we have. So you're able to take this population that maybe wasn't quite as mobile before. Now they're able to get around. They're able to help drive economic development by spending money in other locations and also enjoy themselves and just increase their quality of life. And of course, last but not least, we had snowy here a couple of days in the capital region ago, and you can see that, again, having access to our information, our entire network of services, our real-time information to tell you when the bus is coming, along with this benefit of getting to and from work on time, is really a significant play that we've been able to work with our partnership based on. And then kind of to dovetail off of what Brent and Steve were talking about earlier, it's not just about connections. It's also about helping the environment and doing some of the great work in concert with CDTC. We all want a better environment with less emissions, with less greenhouse gases. And part of that is by utilizing transit where we can. CDTA has also piloted electric buses. So we have 4 on the street now in the capital region. We have another 4 forthcoming here in the next quarter. And you can see it continues to enhance what our partners are doing on the health and sustainability side. So whether you're wanting to ride cycle, whether you want to take flex because you don't want to wait for the fixed route service, or it's in a new area that we haven't been able to serve, those are the different options. And there's also Scoot. Steve, we appreciate what you said earlier. And again, from CDTA's perspective, we can't harp on that enough. The ability for these municipal partnerships to allow us to talk to a Bird, a Lime, or even our own vendor and come up with an intelligent plan that saves the city time and money. It's something that's a headache they don't have to worry about, but at the same time, in our purview, still moves people, is extremely important. When you go a little bit deeper than scooter sharing, there's also van pool development. CDTA has been managing van pool development in the capital region for over a decade. We have almost 50 van pools coming up annually. A significant portion of them are in Watervliet at the Arsenal, as there's a nice group of employees there who are coming in from out of town and need a little bit of a further commute than some might need. So we're able to do that. And I believe we talked earlier on this call, CDTA, we've been working in the background to put together and begin rolling out an electric car share program. Much like it is with our bikes and our scooter program, in this situation, you would have the ability to walk up, preferably to an on-street parking spot. You would then utilize a mobile application to open up the car. It's fully electric. There are some membership benefits and programming you need to do, but at the end of the day, you're talking in the neighborhood of about $5 an hour and $40 a day to have access to an electric automobile. So taking all of those things on top of a 50+ route network that CDTA offers, you can start to see why universal access becomes more and more popular, because whether you're a school, whether you're a business, there are a variety of options now that you can utilize to either benefit your bottom line, benefit your employees, and of course, the reason why we're on this call is to benefit mobility and access around New York's capital region. And then I kind of wanted to close with how we're kind of getting this done. We use magnetic stripe technology where we integrate partner identification cards, but as indicated earlier, there are contactless payments available with Navigator's mobile app and also via the smart card. We also provide real-time schedule information for these partnerships. So for anyone looking to get to work on time at a certain bus stop or location, they're going to be able to open up an app half hour before they're ready to be outside, make sure that everything's lined up. And of course, we're dealing with a lot of sanitation and safety here in the face of COVID. So one of our newer features is live passenger occupancy. So you can go online to CDTA's website or utilize our mobile application, and you'll be able to tell how full the actual buses are on the road. So if you decide that you want to be in not quite of a full bus as maybe you're seeing coming up next, you do have that ability to take a look and wait for the next one to come through. And then last but not least, as just talked about, it's a partnership, and we allow our partners to either manage these things on their own. So if you have a universal access account and you would like to swap and add and reduce cards on your own, we have the ability with our back-end software to allow you to be able to do that on a daily, if not hourly, if not minute-by-minute basis. Or CDTA is a good partner. We will send you cards preloaded, and then you can have the back and forth with us saying which card you want changed, which card you want added. So it really is a plug-and-play kind of system at this point. We have about 25 members of the Universal Access Program today, And, it's really become a way for us to grow with the businesses in the region, while again, at the same time, integrating local universities. We've added Albany City School District to this program, the Schenectady City School District to this program. The Troy City School District added their own identification cards this year. So it's really been something that started as a collegiate kind of solution and has gone on to the business community and is now going even further into secondary kind of initial education components. So again, from CDTA's perspective, universal access doesn't work without all the pieces we've talked about here today. Brent and his team trying to make sure that there's good, strong, intelligent development for the region. Folks like Steve and his team over in Troy making sure that CDTA is in the loop to be able to kind of have the commentary and provide solutions when necessary. And then I come in to make sure that things are affordable and efficient and they're run in a professional way so that as customers, partners, and municipalities all try to work together, becomes pretty seamless. So I believe that's the end of mine. Obviously, mine's a little bit less in depth than some of the other folks, but I'm more kind of, I take up the end of the line and make sure that it gets home, Jen.
Thanks, Jonathan.
you.
So I think it was great. We got to hear from CDTA from both the project, the transit project, development implementation side, and also all of the other things that CDTA does to really keep people moving and connected. I also wanted to add, we did an economic development webinar a few months ago, and everyone we spoke to, CEG was the biggest, was really stressed the importance of having strong transit in a region and having a transportation system that was efficient and affordable and connected people with jobs. And every potential employer they spoke with that was looking at the region talked about transit and the importance of transit. So thank you to CDTA for continuing to make our region attractive. And you mentioned the economic development aspect, and I think that's really important. So I'm just gonna quickly wrap this up. Again, if anyone has comments or questions, please put them in the chat and we will get to them in just a moment. So as we continue to implement new visions, which was adopted in the fall of 2020, we have the learning series, which is each month, but we're also offering, right now it's virtual. We do hope to do some more in person in a few months, but training for planning boards, zoning boards, town boards, or city councils. We have done some of these trainings, and we can tailor the presentation to your community's needs if there's a certain topic or that is something that your community is currently discussing or grappling with. If there's a project that kind of fits into new visions that, a framing of the regional long range plan might help move the project along or facilitate discussion about it, we would be happy to schedule something for your zoning board, your planning board, city council, or town board. We are in the process of updating both the Unified Planning Work Program and the Transportation Improvement Program. There will be a draft UPWP ready for public comment and review within the next couple of months, and we anticipate releasing a draft tip sometime in early spring. So as those two major products are updated, we will update everyone on the timeline and schedule. And if you have any questions or requests, you can always email me at jceponis@cdtcmpo.org. CDTC offers a range of technical assistance, funding assistance. And we also have data, maps, and other information that we would be happy to share with you. They can all be found on our website. Again, you can find our previously recorded New Visions webinars also on the New Visions webpage. It ranges from bicycle and pedestrian safety to freight to to other things like generic environmental impact statements and other planning tools. We also have a learning center full of information that you might be looking for to assist you with local planning. So with that, we'll open it up for any questions. I know I did have a question for Steve as he was presenting. He mentioned a SAM grant, and I was wondering if you could explain what a SAM grant was. That wasn't something I was familiar with, so I wasn't sure if everyone knew what that was.
Well, thank you for that. I'm trying to remember what that is. I know Brent had it on the bottom of one of his slides. It's usually through a legislator in municipalities. What is it?
It's state and municipal infrastructure. Let me bring up my slide.
And usually we are going directly to a legislator asking for that. So we've used them for parks, police.
State and municipal facilities grant.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And it's kind of like the way that I've heard it been described is it's kind of like John McDonald's set aside grant. He has some discretion about how it can get used and where it can go.
And they're run through the dormitory authority, which is
Okay.
a challenge.
Thank you. I don't see any questions in the chat or the Q&A. Okay. I think it's safe to say there's no other questions. So it's just about 4:30. I want to thank all of our panelists again. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our attendees. We'll be sending out attendance certificates. So if you are looking for those CM credits for AICP, I will follow up and make sure that our upstate APA chapter has settled their APA issue, but I'm sure it'll be fine. So I'll send out those certificates, and thank you again to everyone. And I hope everyone has a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.